Hi everyone, Lee Pacchia here, and you are watching Between the Lines, part of Fault Line's effort to take a look at the many cracks in America's criminal justice system. We're talking to Murray Newman from Houston, Texas today. He's a criminal defense attorney and contributor, of course, to Fault Lines. Murray, good to see you. Welcome.
Good to see you, Lee.
So we're talking about, this is a daunting interview to do. We're talking about your recent article that came down today on the shooting death of Sheriff Daniel Goforth. He was
Darren.
a member. That's right, and he was a member of the Harris County Police Department. This was a really important case. When the shooting happened at a gas station, a suspect was picked up. Within 24 hours, there was a very emotional press conference where the authorities basically trucked out the phrase "Cops Lives Matter" and put a lot of the blame for what had happened on the Black Lives Matter movement. There was a very emotional funeral and an outpouring of grief over what happened, obviously a great tragedy. And from there, the case has gone completely bonkers. There are so many weird things to talk about with what has happened since that point in time. I'm just going to let you take it away here and bring us up to speed. A lot of people just remember that press conference where people said "Cops Lives Matter." What's happened since then?
Well, the thing is about this case, it's huge in Houston because so many new things keep happening on it. Here, it's just the Goforth case. If you mention Goforth, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about because this case has really turned into almost a soap opera. And it started off as an absolutely horrible shooting, and it is a horrible shooting. The way the case first presented itself was you had a deputy who had stopped at a gas station, presumably to refill his patrol car, and he had gone inside. He had gone inside to the convenience store, and as he was leaving, he's walking back to the patrol car, and you have an individual just walk up behind him and pretty much just empty out a 13-shot, I believe it's a 9mm, into him. And it's just an execution, unprovoked. There was no indication that there had been any type of conversation or interaction between the two. It was just a brutal execution. And the time period that it was happening in was right around the time where we had the Sandra Bland case going on just down the road, and a big movement with the Black Lives Matter. And so you had some of the local law enforcement politicians, namely the Sheriff Ron Hickman and District Attorney Devin Anderson, giving a very powerful press conference saying, well, police lives matter. And everyone just looked at the absolute randomness of this attack and thought that this man had just been killed strictly because of his status as a police officer.
While on duty. That was an important detail that has turned out to be potentially in question.
Correct. And in Texas, as in a lot of states, police officers, as are firemen, are protected classes of citizens when it comes to capital murder. If you kill a police officer or a fireman in the line of duty, and they're in the course of their job, it has the potential to be a capital murder, which allows the death penalty to be a potential punishment for that crime. And they arrested the individual responsible, a guy named Shannon Miles, within 24 hours of it. All of it's caught on video. I haven't seen the video, but I heard it's just horrible. And one of the first things that the news mentioned was that he previously had some mental health issues, which made me think this may not be so much of a political statement as the act of someone who may have some pretty severe mental health issues. But that didn't slow our local politicians down from making these very bombastic statements about police lives matter. And they had a humongous funeral. It was televised here across Harris County, which encompasses Houston. And the governor came in. There were speeches upon speeches. Every politician in the county attended, and the death of Deputy Goforth really became a rallying cry for law and order here.
Mm-hmm. And then problems started to crop up with the witnesses. Can you tell me about them?
Well, the first thing that came up was you had first of all, Shannon Miles was appointed an attorney named Anthony Osso, and Anthony is kind of a fixture around Harris County. He does a lot of death penalty capitals. As I was telling you earlier, he's a great guy. He's a great lawyer, but he has a very thick New Jersey sounding type accent, which, merges right in with our accents down here. But everybody likes Anthony. He's a really good guy, but he's also not afraid to speak his mind and go all out for his client. And within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden he said, well, look, there's more to this story here. You have to think of that in Anthony's dialect with his New Jersey accent. It's like, there's more to this story here. And he said, Goforth may have been meeting his girlfriend. Had a girlfriend on the side that he was meeting at this convenience store. And if he's doing that, well, then I don't see how you make the argument that he's in the line of duty, and therefore it's not a capital, and therefore the death penalty shouldn't be on the table. And he makes this announcement, and of course everyone just goes nuts. Obviously, it's not something that's very well received by the sheriff's office or his brethren. No one's denying it, but everyone's just acting as if Anthony is just dragging Deputy Goforth's name through the mud. And that's really not Anthony's style. I mean, he's bringing it up as a valid legal point, but he also talks to the media about it, which in my opinion was probably wise, considering all of the media that was just going on about police lives matter.
Mm-hmm. And people have left the department because they were also involved with this woman who Goforth was supposedly meeting. I mean, this has turned into, like you said before, this is a total soap opera, and it's just one aspect of the madness of this case.
Right, because you had Craig Clopton, who was a very distinguished and well-known homicide sergeant with the sheriff's office, who's working on the case, and all of a sudden they come out they give a Brady notice saying and they go ahead and announce it in the media because Clopton has handled hundreds of homicide cases, ones that are still pending, not just Goforth, but the DA's office has to do a Brady notice because they've discovered that he's had a sexual relationship with the witness. And then when they say, well, what witness? And it turns out it's the very witness that Deputy Goforth was meeting at the gas station, apparently. So Clopton just destroys his career. He gets fired. The integrity of the case is called into question, and it's just scandal town. And then a couple of months go by, and it turns out that yet another deputy has either propositioned her or had a relationship with her, and they're firing him too. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then they fire yet another, a fourth deputy who has been inappropriate with this same key witness. And at some point it starts to become comical, and the scandal behind it is just overshadowing a capital murder of a police officer.
Sure. And here's where it just takes a turn for like a Coen Brothers film. A state senator by the name of John Whitmire took the frankly absurd step of stepping into the case to expedite the transfer of the defendant from the local jail to a mental health care facility. It's supposed to be a 90-day process, and he wanted it done faster, which I maybe if that's in the best interest of the defendant, I guess, but it seems highly unusual and another way that this case got compromised.
Right.
What to make of this?
Well, Anthony also basically challenges Miles's competency to stand trial. And so they have a hearing, and ultimately it's ruled, and I'm not sure if it was a judge or jury that found that Shannon Miles was at least temporarily mentally incompetent, couldn't assist in the defense of his own case. And here in Houston, when that happens, they send him off to Vernon State Hospital to see if through a battery of medication or therapy, whether or not competency can be restored to the point that they at least understand what's going on with their case. It's a separate issue from insanity. Although they are very close cousins, they're not the same thing. But it's not an uncommon feature to have us send somebody off because they're incompetent. But therapists think that with the right medication, that competency can be restored. And unfortunately, in a jurisdiction as big as Houston is with Harris County, there are a lot of people that fit that bill, not just capital murderers, that get found incompetent. They get shipped off to Vernon to see if competency can be restored. And if they do restore competency, they can return back and resume the legal process. Well, they found Miles incompetent, and they put him in line to go, and he was behind about 60 people, which meant there'd be a 90 to 120-day wait before he actually even began the process of attempting to restore his competency. And all of his on his own, with no invitation or no request, all of a sudden you have this state senator, John Whitmire, say, you know what, I'm going to just bump him to the head of the line.
Why?
Nobody knows. The people that I've talked to, I thought that maybe the sheriff wanted it done faster because he's in the sheriff's jail and he killed one of the sheriff's men, and it's sheriff, and get him out of county before the witness sleeps with yet another deputy, I guess. It sounds like they really ought to be getting that witness out of county instead of Mr. Miles. But it doesn't appear to be the case. It appears that Whitmire just did this on his own. He read about the Goforth case in the media and just decided that that's what needed to be done. And he tried to sound altruistic, like he was doing it on Mr. Miles's behalf, saying, he belongs in a hospital, not the jail. But Anthony also took exception to what he was doing and said, hey, back off. And instead of backing off, Whitmire has basically said, you don't get to tell me what to do.
Okay.
And so you now have a criminal defense attorney filing motions in the court where his client is charged, and it literally says motion to stop John Whitmire. I actually have it right here. No, it's the last one, but it's basically motion to have John Whitmire stop interfering in the prosecution of Shannon Miles, which is just a strange animal when it comes to legal motions.
Sure. Murray, where is this all going?
I don't know. There was a hearing. My understanding was it was scheduled for tomorrow, but it's since been moved till Monday. I mean, ultimately, Shannon Miles is going to be evaluated, and whether if they can't restore his competency, then I think he'll be civilly committed, and they're not going to reach trial with him. But if they do restore his competency, which they tend to do in most cases, whether they do it at least from a legal standpoint, I don't know that they do it really and truly from a medical standpoint. This is all part of what would be shaping up to be a good insanity defense for Anthony also to use on this case.
So what's this going to mean for Harris County PD at the end of the day? They don't look great here.
The sheriff's office is not looking great here. I would imagine that if I were Sheriff Hickman, as much as it would pain me to see someone who kills one of my officers not receive the death penalty, I would be hoping that the case resolved without going to trial, because obviously Anthony also at this point has a two-front war to fight. He can basically make the argument about his client's mental health history, and he can also make the sheriff's office look absolutely horrible with all this sex scandal information.
For sure. Murray, fascinating situation developing down in Texas. We hope you stay on top of it for us.
All right, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Murray. That's Murray Newman, criminal defense attorney in Houston, Texas, and contributor to Fault Lines. If you're liking the stuff that we're working on, be sure to check us out online. You can find us at MimesisLaw.com under the Fault Lines tab. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you're listening to us over iTunes, do us a favor and write us a positive review. It makes all the difference in the world. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. There's more good stuff coming, I promise. I'm Lee Pacchia. Thanks for watching. See you next week. How does a prosecutor object to something like that with a straight face?
I don't understand that, and I've had that debate with a number of prosecutors when it's come up, and told them basically what you just said. How do you not agree with what he said, and how do you also not look at it and say, well, I'm not doing that, so I don't have anything to worry about?